Hey, what's up there, YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer55551, and I am back with a My 2 Cent video for this week, for the week of February 23rd to March 1st, 2025. Obviously, despite the rumors out there, it doesn't seem like the Nintendo Direct, the February Direct that most people are thinking what's going to happen, actually happened or anything like that. I mean, it's possible Nintendo may have canceled it. It's possible they weren't planning to do one in the first place, which is kind of interesting. Over the past, they've done February Directs and everything like that. I mean, my guess is possible that they are gearing up for April 2nd when they start talking about the Switch 2 and everything. I mean, we did have a Pokemon presentation, but clearly since I'm not into Pokemon, it just didn't really click with me. So yeah, I can understand why some people were disappointed that we didn't get a February Nintendo Direct, and I will admit, I'm disappointed myself, but it's not something I'm losing absolute sleep over. But anyway, we got 4 stories to cover this week, including NetEase layoffs, though. They lay off several studios and developers. A new 2D Terminator game, which kind of surprised a lot of folks, to be exact, though. A surprise announcement of WB Games laying off and closing down studios like Aulx Studio. And, of course, Avowed, in terms of the sale numbers, at least based off what Obsidian and Microsoft are basically saying, and of course, Steam concurrent player counts, depending on whether you agree with those counts or not. If you're interested in where I got the source of these information, links will be in the description of this video, assuming you're watching this on YouTube. But before we get started, I like to do what I like to call the quick My 2 Cent stories that kind of caught my attention, but I'm not going to go into huge amount of details. The first one has to do with, it has now been officially reported that Fable, or this Fable reboot that Playground Games, the developers of the Forza Horizon series, has officially now been delayed into 2026. I will admit, it is a little disappointing to see it get delayed though, but at the same time, the delay may actually end up being a good thing. Again, we've seen before games get delayed, and as it'll always be the case, but we've also seen cases where it turns out to be that was actually the smart thing to do. So we'll have to wait and see if this delay ends up being worth it or not. There have been many speculation of what it could be. Some believe that because of Microsoft's lineup in terms of what they have this year. Others are pointing towards GTA 6 being released this year, assuming what Rocksteady is saying is true. But in either case, Fable has been delayed to 2026. Again, disappointed, but not really losing sleep over this. Meanwhile, we know that we are going to get Forza Horizon 5 for, guess it, the PS5. You know, a more push for Microsoft's multi-platform approach, which, depending on who you ask, it's some like this approach, some don't. We also learned that a new image has reportedly leaked of what we could expect for the Nintendo Switch 2 dock, though. I am curious to see if this dock will do anything different from, the dock from the Switch 1. I'm still leaning towards it's most unlikely that's going to happen and everything like that, but, Nintendo could surprise us, and you never really know or anything like that. So we'll have to wait and see once Nintendo starts talking about this stuff on April 2nd and all. We also learned that the developers of Palworld is giving their developers days off to get this, play Monster Hunter Wilds, which I'm sure most of you are aware of, has just recently came out, and so far it seems to be doing very well for Capcom and everything like that. I remember hearing a story, I think it was months ago, where when the new Dragon Quest came out, several companies or studios let their employees take days off, given the popularity of the Dragon Quest series. So it's kind of interesting to see just how much of an impact a game like that and Monster Hunter has in general. Obviously, Capcom must be happy with things right now with Monster Hunter Wilds. We'll see what they do in terms of any roadmap and what we could see more of down the road with Monster Hunter Wilds in general. We also learned that according to Satana, with Matt Piscatella, there's a report that more than 40% of all US PS5 and Xbox playtime last month was spent on 10 live service games, which, as an old school gamer, that is, in my view, very disappointing though, okay? Again, I'm not saying live service games can't exist or anything like that. I think they can when utilized correctly and everything, but 10 live services, I mean, it kind of reinforces the argument how we see all these developers, or a majority of these developers, jump aboard the gravy train to make every game they want to do live services, only to see it fall flat. See Concord and Suicide Squad kill the Justice League as a good example of that. So I would say, as an old school gamer, this I think is very disheartening and very disappointing. And last but not least, we are learning that supposedly Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4 has been rated in Singapore. Now, it's possible this rating could be wrong, but it also could mean that we are setting the stage for the possibility of them announcing Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4 for multiple platforms, including the Nintendo Switch, since Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 went to the Nintendo Switch as well. There were talks about the possibility of this game never happening due to, I think, Activision Blizzard made a decision to move Vicursa Vision to another game and everything like that, and they kind of regret that decision. But assuming this rating is correct and assuming this rumor is true, obviously Tony Hawk 3 and 4 is going to happen. It will be very interesting to see if this opens the door to the possibility of maybe Tony Hawk Underground 1 and 2 or a remake or remaster of that one happening at all. And in the movie and TV show part of the Quick My Two Cents, we saw a new trailer for the second season of Andor, though, that is up on YouTube. I definitely enjoyed Andor. I enjoyed the first one, and I'm looking forward to the second one. I am curious to see how this will all tie into Rogue One in general. So it's definitely on my radar indeed, though. I will say Disney's handling of Star Wars, at least shows on Disney Plus, have been, or at least their handling of Star Wars in general, at least in my view, has been sort of mixed. They've had successes like The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, Rogue One. I think the new trilogy wasn't as bad despite what the internet has to say. I'm not saying it's going to overtake the original trilogy. It isn't, but I still enjoy the new trilogy nevertheless. But at the same time, there were misfires like the Han Solo movie to the Aulx, that was, if I'm saying the name correctly, that was on Disney Plus as well. So I would say it's a sort of a mixed bag though, but given that I enjoyed the first season of Andor, this is one I'm definitely going to keep an eye out for when that comes out, though. We also learned that James Gunn is actively in development of the DC Universe's video games. This sort of has to do with a strategy that he's aiming for to have like the video games, the comic books, and everything connected to this new DC universe that he is working on, though. We saw the first one with Creature Commandos, and I think the next one will be the upcoming Superman movie, which will be out in July, though. So it will be interesting to see how this all plays out, but at the same time, it also led to a casualty, which I will talk about in part 2 of my 2 cent video, though. We also learned that supposedly there are some disappointing news about season 2 of The Penguin, which I really enjoyed that show. I thought that was really good on Max and everything, but sadly, it doesn't seem to be it's happening, well, anytime soon, at least at this time. Some believe it could happen after like maybe the Batman Part 2, which is supposedly will be out, I think, 2027, but it doesn't sound like they're in any hurry. And given the fact that James Gunn is now in charge of the DC cinematic universe and everything like that, it remains to be seen if a second season will happen. Personally, I would like the second season to happen. I enjoyed the first season, but time will ultimately tell if that does happen or not. We also learned that Venom, who died in the movie Venom: The Last Dance, it remains to be unseen if he'll return in the future or not. This has to do with Sony changing some of their strategy to their Spider-Man cinematic universe, which after Kraven the Hunter bombed to the box office, they sort of hit the pause button. And while the Venom movie seemed to have done well for Sony, it was the lowest grossing film for them. So it remains to be seen if we'll see Venom make an appearance again, although there are rumors pointing towards the possibility that he could make an appearance in the upcoming Spider-Man 4 movie, which we don't have a title yet for that movie at this time. So we'll see if that does happen or not. We also learned that the upcoming Razzo Awards are being announced, and we have some nominees. Basically, Bad Web is being nominated for Worst Movie, to Joker 2 being nominated to Worst like sequel, remake, remaster. So it'll be interesting to see what movies win the Razzo Awards, though. Some I can understand some of these winning the Razzo Awards, but then there are others I feel like I just don't think they deserve to win the Razzo Awards or anything like that. So it's sort of a mixed bag. But if you're interested, though, I mean, there are some of the categories of what movies are being nominated for the Razzo Awards and all. We also learned that Captain America Brave New World has sort of peaked at #1 in the weekend in the box office, despite the new release. I believe it was called The Monkey or something. Basically, there's been some debate whether or not the movie is going to flop or not. It certainly, I think, week 2, there was a huge drop-off or something like that. But there's been some articles back and forth. Some feel like Captain America Brave New World will break even, others will flop and all. It's going to be very interesting considering coming off of last year when Deadpool and Wolverine did incredibly well at the box office and all. So we'll have to wait and see about that. I certainly enjoyed Captain America Brave New World. I did a review of that movie. It wasn't perfect, but I still think it was good. Just nowhere near as good as the original Captain America, The First Avenger, or Captain America Winter Soldier, but still enjoyable nevertheless. And last but not least, unfortunately, we have now learned that actor Gene Hackman and I believe his wife have been found dead in their home in Santa Fe. Right now, police are investigating that, and it remains to be seen what may have been the cause of this at this time. Very unfortunate. I've seen Gene Hackman star in several different movies, including, I believe, the original the Superman movie with the late Christopher Reeves and all. So very unfortunate, and my heart goes out to his fans, his friends, and of course, his family and all. Okay, with the Quick My 2 Cent part now done, along with the movie and TV show part of the Quick My 2 Cent, we'll get started with our first story, and this one has to do with Avowed, though. Now, Avowed originally announced, I believe it was back in 2018. There was certain comparison of this being like the next Skyrim or something like that. And then, of course, we started to see more and more gameplay started to come out about the game. There were some that were kind of a little iffy about it, especially with the visuals and so forth, to basically the developers' decision to aim for 30 frames per second and everything like that. But then at the same time, they've also did some other things like add a third-person perspective and all. Now, I have downloaded Avowed on Game Pass, and I've been trying it out lately. And I will say I am pleased with what I've seen so far, though. I think the combat is the game's strong point, and I do like the idea that you can sort of mix and match and sort of come up with what fits you the best. For me, my primary is the sword and shield melee combo, and my secondary is the spell book and the wand. But obviously, everyone's going to have a different type of combat, how they want to aim for and all. Well, recently there has been some talks about whether or not Avowed bombed or Avowed did very well, and at least according to an article from Bloomberg from Jason Strider, and at least according to developers of Obsidian, assuming what they are saying correctly, though, it seems, at least to them, they're very happy with the way Avowed has been, at least the way the game has been performing so far, at least in their eyes and all. In an article from Pure Xbox, it reads that, quote, as part of a recent newsletter over at Bloomberg, game director Carrie Patel, if I'm saying her name correctly, touched on varied bits of Avowed development and its launch, where Bloomberg noticed that players have raved about the game and the company said it's happy with the sales so far. Given the game went #1 on Steam last week, it sounds like Avowed has sold rather well then, despite being included in Xbox Game Pass on day one. Game Pass is only applied for the Xbox and Microsoft Store PC version, though. Steam users will have to purchase the game and purchase it they seem to have done. The chart also provides us with plenty of direct quotes from Patel, including some interesting comments about the team's potential building on Avowed's foundation for another title. Bloomberg says it seems more likely that the team will expand upon Avowed for future projects that start on something from scratch. And here's what she had to say herself on the topic, though. Quote, now that we have built this wonderful world and also built this team's strength and muscle memory around the content and gameplay in this world, I'd love to see us do more with it. Meanwhile, over at Game Rant, they are basically reporting that, basically bring up how it was revealed that Avowed was originally a multiplayer take on Skyrim, with Obsidian rebooting the game twice before settling in the final iteration seen at release. They're saying this game has been in the works since 2018, so it's good to see Obsidian gamble on something fresh has seemingly paid off. If Obsidian does choose to pursue expansion or sequel to Avowed, it isn't clear how long that would take to come to fruition. The studio remains committed to the development of The Outer Worlds 2, which is currently state for launch late in 2025. barring any delay. Excuse me, barring any last-minute delay. It's worth remembering that it did release expansions to the original Outer World even as development of Avowed ramped up a few years ago, so it's certainly possible that the studio will work on both simultaneously. Now, assuming what Obsidian is saying is true, and some might argue that this is spin or something like that, and that's a possibility, but at the same time, though, it's also possible it could be true. And assuming this is what the expectations they were aiming for, then it's possible the game did very well for them. I mean, I'm enjoying the game so far. I definitely like their take on Skyrim. I kind of view this game as Skyrim light to a certain extent, much like how I view the Outer Worlds right now as Starfield light to a certain extent. It's going to be very interesting to see if they expand upon this universe, whether it's with expansions or a sequel. I'm not sure. It's possible we may have to wait a while if an expansion or sequel does happen, considering it does seem to indicate all hands are on deck for the Outer Worlds 2 and everything like that. So, I mean, we may have to wait a little bit for that. But as GameRant mentioned, they were able to develop both at the same time. So it is a possibility, but we'll have to wait and see. But overall, it does seem, at least according to what Obsidian and even Microsoft are saying, Avowed seems to be off to a great start. Whether they can maintain that or not remains to be seen. And obviously, this is based off the Steam chart, so read it however you want to read it, whether you think it's accurate or not. But at least according to Obsidian, they seem to be happy with what is going on with Avowed at this time. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 2, and this one has to do with WB Games, and unfortunately, the announcement of layoffs and closures of several studios, including Monolith Studio as well. Not the Monolith from that Nintendo owns or anything like that, a different Monolith Studio. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, excuse me. Okay, and we are back with part 2 of my 2 cent video, and for this one, we're going to be taking a look at WB Games, and unfortunately, some decisions that they made that won't probably sit well with a lot of fans, though. Now, WB Games has been known to make certainly several credible games, if depending on what kind of game that you enjoy or anything like that. Some of the popular ones are like Hogwarts Legacy, even though I chose not to purchase it because of, well, let's just say J.K. Rowling's views or something like that, to games like the Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor or Shadow of War, although that game got heavily criticized due to the monetization and everything like that, to the Batman Arkham trilogy, which is considered by many to be one of the best superhero video games out there. But lately, it does seem to indicate there's been some questions remaining about some of the decision WB Games has made. One of those is, of course, Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League, a game that was originally announced and then shown during one of Sony's State of Play and turned out to be a live service game, which garnished really much an enormous backlash to the degree that they had to delay the game and everything like that to try to at least make it more appealing. But even that wasn't enough to save that game, though. And eventually they decided to shut down support for the game following all the content they put out. Though there is a silver lining, at the very least, there is an offline mode, so you can at least enjoy the game offline, very much similar to Redfall. So at least that's something to a certain extent. But in either case, it seemed that game bombed so hard that it may have had an impact on other studios, including ones working on Multiverse, to even the Wonder Woman game that Monolith Production was working on. And unfortunately, it does seem to indicate that WB Games has decided to axe not only these games, but also these studios as well. In an article from GameDevelopers.com, it reads, quote, Warner Bros. Games is reportedly shutting down 3 studios, Monolith Production, Player First Game, and its self-titled San Diego team. Per Bloomberg's Jason Schreier, the trio of development will be winding down later this week. Monolith Wonder Woman game has also been canceled as a result of the studio's closure. There's been some debate over the whole trying to implement the Nemesis system that was introduced in the Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War game, which is very popular for some folks, but obviously they could not do that with this game. Anyway, continuing on. This is a strategic change in direction and not a reflection of these teams or the talents that exist within them, wrote WB Games in a statement. We generally admire the passion of these three teams and thank every employee for their contribution. It points out that in 2024, Rocksteady Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League was a massive financial bust for WB Games, and it's been trying to recover ever since. Earlier in February, Bloomberg reported that the publisher struggled and the situation at its various internal team. The report came after the departure of game head David Hadda, if I'm saying this incorrectly, at the end of January, whose tenure was described by some developers as years of ineffective trend chasing and wasted development time. According to that report, Monolith quietly rebooted its Wonder Woman game, whose budget was already said to be over $100 million. WB's statement claimed that its desire to deliver the highest quality experience possible for the iconic character is no longer possible with our strategic priorities. The studio's last game was 2017's Middle-earth Shadow of War. Player First released the Platform Fire Multiverse, first in early access in 2022, then as a full release in 2024. The game was already set to be shut down at the end of May, and the studio has been acquired by WB shortly after its launch. WB Games was founded in 2019 and was established to work on free-to-play mobile games. Earlier this week, DC Film co-head James Gunn affirmed the company's commitment to games and said he spoke with Rocksteady and NetherRealms about new DC titles. According to him, major DC games are a couple years away, which may be overly optimistic given today's news. So I think when you look back at this and some of these studios closed, I think there's a lot of reasons you could point to, and I think majority of this, I think it falls on the higher ups, especially the trend tracing, trying to be the next the next Warzone, the next Fortnite, that kind of stuff, or the next Players Unknown Battleground or something like that, or the next Rocket League. And unfortunately that came back and, well, let's just say it bit them on the ass really hard, and we saw what happened with Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League in general, though. It really is unfortunate, and it really is very sad to see Monolith production get shut down, because a lot of people do have fond memories of a lot of the games that they have worked on. So to see this happen is very unfortunate indeed, and everything like that. I'm hoping all these folks are able to get basically new jobs somewhere, though, but given where the industry has been heading lately, that's going to be tough, to be exact, though. And I also think it kind of highlights some of the piss poor decisions some of these companies have been making. I mean, a lot of the AAA space has been, a lot of the budget has been like enormous out there, and it's very hard to recoup the losses of those with the amount of budget or everything like that. So yeah, there are serious some issues with the AAA experience, and there's certainly going to have to be some changes at some point down the road in terms of how things are handling it, though. I also kind of find it funny that WB Games mentioned they want to focus on, prioritizing, like DC characters, yet they killed off the Wonder Woman game in general. So that certainly was not great indeed. So very unfortunate news indeed, though. It's going to be very interesting for Rocksteady in terms of the rumored Batman Beyond game that supposedly they could be working on, which I do think has potential to succeed, but given the reputation they got after what happened with Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League, I will say they have a tough hill to climb, assuming that rumor is true. It will also be very interesting to see how James Gunn is going to handle all this, considering he's claiming that a lot of these will be interconnected with the DC, cinematic universe, and the fact that it's years away, which means we might be waiting a while. Also be interesting to see if WB Games decides to license out some of these IPs to other developers or anything like that. So overall, very disappointed to see this, though. Very disappointed to see several studios like Monolith and others be shut down and everything like that. And I do think a lot of this blame does fall on the higher ups and some of the, I hate to say this, but their piss poor decisions that they made and all. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 3. And this one has to do with believe it or not, a new 2D Terminator game announced this week, which was kind of surprising indeed. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 3 of my 2 cent video, and for this one, we're going to be taking a look at an announcement of a brand new Terminator game called Terminator 2D No Faith. Now, when it comes to the Terminator franchise, franchise has had its ups and downs. Some of the highs are ranging from stuff like the first Terminator movie and Terminator 2 Judgment Day, which is considered to be classics among a lot of folks out there, to even the Sarah Connor Chronicle, which is apparently had gained sort of a following over the years. A lot of people like that. But the series has also had its lows. Not everybody was a fan of Terminator 3 Rise of the Machine. Terminator Salvation, while I liked the idea, just wasn't executed that well. Terminator Genesis also was And then Terminator Dark Fate, which, although tried to undo what Salvation or Rise of the Machine did, it still didn't do very well. And it sort of put, at this time, pretty much the franchise on ice at this point, though. As far as video game adaptations, let's just say their video game adaptation isn't exactly, let's just say, great. I mean, they're 2D games based on the NES and Super NES and Sega Genesis. Aren't really fondly remembered, although there were those who supposedly liked the Sega CD game, though. But I think the one that's most recognizable, though, has always been Terminator 2, the arcade game, which you would usually see, at a bowling alley or a movie theater back in the day, though. It was sort of a fun quarter-eater type of a game and all. They also do one based off of Terminator Salvation and all. And then, of course, there was Terminator Resistance, which to me turned out to be a better than I expected Terminator game. I definitely liked the direction they went with that game, though. Visually it was a mixed bag, but I still enjoyed what I saw nevertheless, though. So it was kind of surprising to see them announce a brand new Terminator game, let alone a a 2D Terminator game. That I thought kind of came out of nowhere, and I was a little bit surprised, but at the same time, I'm kind of interested in this title and all. In an article from Video Game Chronicles, it reads, quote, Terminator 2D No Fate is coming to PS5, Xbox Series X and S, Switch, PS4, Xbox One, and PC via Steam and Epic Games stores on September 5th. According to the publisher Reef Entertainment, the game will blend iconic scenes from Terminator 2 Judgment Day with original scenarios, and will have multiple endings, meaning humanity's fate is yours to decide. Players will control Sarah Connor and the T-8100, played in the movies by Arnold Schwarzenegger in the 90s, as they try to stop the T-1000 and Skynet before humanity is wiped out. Terminator No Fate is being developed by Bitmap Bureau, the retro-focused studio previously responsible for such titles as Xeno Crisis, Final Vendetta, and 88 Heroes. They said, though, our team is passionate in crafting adrenaline-fueled arcade gameplay and stunning pixel art, the very element that makes the game special to us, designer-director Mike Tucker said in a post on the official PlayStation blog. As our first licensed game, we want to do justice to the Terminator 2 legacy. So, based on what was shown so far with this footage, though, I would say I'm liking what I'm seeing right now. I'm definitely getting that run and gun vibe, from games like Contra to Metal Slug, and maybe a little bit of a Way Forward vibe, since they're known for doing a lot of these 2D games and so forth. So I'm definitely getting that from this game, though. Whether it turns out to be good or not, that remains to be seen. So time will ultimately tell if that game turns out to be good or if it turns out to be terrible or anything like that. But judging from what they've shown so far, I am very pleased with that, though. I guess my one criticism so far that I've seen is we haven't seen anything, it would have been nice if they had, took inspiration or scenarios from the original Terminator movie. I mean, that would have been nice if they could have done that, though. So a little bit unfortunate, but still, for many, Terminator 2 Judgment Day is hailed as one of the best sequels out there and everything. So certainly I'm interested indeed. So this is one I'm definitely going to keep an eye out for, and I'm thinking about more towards getting this for the Nintendo Switch or Switch 2 when that comes out supposedly on September 5th. I am going to be curious to see if a physical version does happen, though. So we'll have to wait and see, but overall, I would say for a new 2D Terminator game, this one is definitely on my radar and all. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we'll get to our fourth and final part, and this one has to do with, unfortunately, another layoff, this time from NetEase. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with our fourth and final part of our My Choose Cent video. And for this one, this has to do with NetEase. And unfortunately, they are facing some layoffs as well. So obviously, we've been seeing a lot of layoffs from the gaming industry a lot. And there have been criticism about some of them being justifiable or not. Sometimes it is, other times that's not always the case. We saw this recently, I talked about, WB Games. And well, it looks like NetEase is another victim as well. And this comes off the heels of Marvel's Rival apparently doing very well. And I think some people raise questions about NetEase's decision to do this though. In an article from game developers, it reads that, quote, Chinese conglomerate NetEase has told game developers it will continue to support its myriad of overseas studios, but warned that structural change will be a necessary part of ongoing growth. The Marvel Rival developer has reinstated its stance after Bloomberg report that the company laid off hundreds of workers across the studio's network and canceled multiple projects. The publication claimed NetEase, under the leadership of CEO William Ding, has pulled back on international investments to refocus on a smaller portfolio of evergreen mass-market titles like Egg Party. NetEase has previously established and invested into huge numbers of international studios such as Jars of Spark, Aulx Studios, Bullet Farm World, Untold Skybox Labs, Rebel Wolves, and Anchor Point, and more. Some of the titles, such as Skybox Lab and Aulx Studios, have reportedly laid off workers in recent months. Others, like Rebel Wolves and Anchor Point, recently issued a statement explaining they remain unaffected by the proposed business pivot. As for NetEase itself, responding to Bloomberg's reporting and the statement issued by the studio, a company spokesman told game developer the firm remains committed to its global expansion plans, but acknowledged business evaluation has been taking place. NetEase chose to lay off multiple Marvel Rival developers in the United States after one such evaluation. That decision was made after the multiplayer hero shooter topped 40 million players within months of launch. As far as overseas business efforts are concerned, NetEase has not waived its global expansion plans. Our two-pronged approach, combining self-research and investments to explore gaming market, is still active progress and yield positive results, explained NetEase spokesman. As part of our investment strategy, every decision was based purely on business evaluation and was not influenced by other factors. Our studios in North America, the UK, Spain, France, and Japan all continue to refine and develop their ongoing gaming project. NetEase said it's actively recruiting and nurturing talents across its global business, but it adds that organizing structure change aimed at improving performance are a necessary part of our ongoing growth. Mr. Ding stated that the recent earnings call that NetEase is committed to supporting really high-quality studios and master creators at the company, that the company strategy, and there is no change to this plan. For any studio globally, it behooves us as a responsible commercial business to frequently evaluate the progress, viability, and potential for success of our products and teams. Now, some of this does make sense to some degree, but at the same time, the timing of it is also not great as well, considering this comes off the heel of the success that Marvel Rivals has been seeing lately, and it raised questions about the decision to basically, what NetEase was making. They also supposedly are scaling back, I think, a project made by the original Yakuza developer, who was, I think, working with NetEase. I think it was NetEase, though, and now it remains to be seen if what will happen to that project and everything. So it's not great in the gaming industry right now, and certainly there's a lot of layoffs going out there. Again, I hope these folks can find new jobs and everything like that, but yeah, not great signs for basically a lot of the gaming industry in general. So overall, it's possible NetEase could be right about what they just said in terms of laying off and shutting down these studios, but at the same time, the timing of it does raise questions, considering this is coming off the heels of the success of Marvel Rivals and all. Okay, this concludes this My Choose Cent video for this week. And again, these are my opinion. What are yours? What are your thoughts about Obsidian's response to saying that Avowed have sold very well and everything? Do you think Obsidian is right in terms of their telling the truth? Do you think they're lying in any way though? Have you played Avowed? Do you love it? Do you hate it? What are your thoughts about WB Games shutting down a lot of these studios? Do you think a lot of the decisions fall on the higher ups with some of the choices they made? Do you think you agree with Suicide Squad killing the Justice League really having a negative impact on WB Games in general? Would you have liked to see this Wonder Woman game from Monolith Production before they were shut down by WB Games? What are your thoughts about Terminator 2D No Fate, the new 2D Terminator game? Do you think this game looks impressive and all? Were you kind of surprised when they make this announcement? Are you looking forward to picking up this title or not? And if so, which platform do you plan to pick it up? And last but not least, what are your thoughts about NetEase laying off some of these studios, especially coming off the heels of the success of Marvel Rivals? Do you think what NetEase says is justifiable for them to close these studios and lay off these employees? Or do you feel like there's something wrong with the timing of this due to coming off the heels of the announcement of how well Marvel Rivals is doing? Do you agree with what I said in this video? Do you disagree? Do you have a difference of opinion? As always, sound off in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. And if you do like this video, I hope you hit the like button. I would appreciate it. And I hope you do subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you do, make sure you hit the bell icon for notifications of any new videos I put up. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to, and feel free to donate to my channel if you like. You can do it through PayPal Me or Patreon or Steam Labs. Links will be in the description of this video, assuming you're watching this on YouTube. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that'll be soon. Until then, from Southern California, I wish you all a good day then. Bye.